Alright peeps, your boy, he's back. Took a couple of months off from YouTube to work on the greatest game ever. My game. Haha. So I'll talk about some updates I made on the game in another video. But before that, a word from our sponsor. You think I'm gonna sell out to some corporate degenerates to make a few extra bucks? Hell no! No corporate blood on this channel. Okay, back to the question of, is game development hard? Well, obviously, nothing is too hard for yours truly. But this is kind of a generic question. It's like asking, is cooking hard? Well, are you cooking a fried egg or a French consommé soup? Consommé. Consommé.
That's enough.
Is that how you say it? Consommé.
That's enough.
There are different disciplines in game development, where each discipline requires a different skill set. In game development, you have the game programmer, the UI and the UX designer, the storyteller, the level designer, the animator, and the list goes on. If you're an indie dev, you gotta do it all. Programming, art, story, marketing, you name it. Meanwhile, in AAA studios, they got a guy whose only job is to design the perfect gun recoil. And another guy who brings the coffee. And they still release the game full of bugs. How the hell does that happen? But in this video, I'm gonna focus on game design, because personally, I think this is the most critical and challenging part of game development. You're probably asking, bro, aren't the animations and visual aspect of the game just as important as the game logic?
That's not what I'm asking you for.
The short answer is no. Why? Number one, because I said so. Haha. Number two, the visual aspects of a game are nice when you first play it, but it's not enough to keep long-term player engagement. Minecraft is a perfect example of this. Minecraft literally had similar graphics to an 80s Atari game, but yet it's the #1 selling video game in the world. What made Minecraft a success was its fun and unique gameplay logic. Players had the freedom to basically build whatever they wanted. It was up to their imagination. But just wait. My game will break this record very soon. Haha. That's why you must like and subscribe, so that we can keep that YouTube algorithm sauce nice and spicy. Okay, enough ranting. I'll give my 2 cents based on my experience with Unreal Engine. Oh, Unreal Engine, my frenemy. Unreal Engine is like that friend who always bails you out of trouble, but makes you pay for lunch every time. It has everything you need, but if something goes wrong, good luck trying to figure it out. Some people will say that the programming and coding part is the most difficult part of game development.
Why does everything have to be so complicated?
But personally, I don't really agree. These game engines are made in a way that you don't have to reprogram things from scratch. I would say about 90% of the time, there's usually a built-in function that does exactly what you need. When I first started developing, I remember that I needed to calculate the distance between 2 characters. I had the pointers for both characters, so I literally applied the distance formula to get the distance between them. Come to realize that there is a getDistance2 function that already does this for you.
Now who's stupid?
But remember this, failure is the new success.
You're kidding, right?
If at first you don't succeed, cry in a corner, delete your project files, and start a new game. For me, the hard part about game development is trying to come up with an original game concept that will keep players engaged while simultaneously balancing gameplay and difficulty. This is usually an iterative process where you conceptualize the idea, program it, and test it. Depending on how complex your idea is, this could take some time. Trust me. If your game is multiplayer, it adds a significant layer of complexity, because now you have to worry about things like lag, jitter, replication, and so forth. Debugging is also another difficult part of game development. If the game crashes, the logs usually give you some indication of where the problem is coming from, but sometimes you're not given much information and you basically have to dig in the code and figure it out yourself. Not fun. But I guess this is typical of software programming environments. Sometimes though, there's bugs within the gaming engine, and these are the worst kind of bugs you can face. One example of this from my game that I can give you is when I was using anim notifies in my montages. Anim notifies are tags that you add to your timeline in your animation montage, where you can call custom functions when this tag gets fired. You can, for example, play sounds or play some particle effect whenever that tag gets hit in the timeline. In my case, I was adding an anim notify at the very end of an animation montage. The problem I was facing was that sometimes these anim notifies weren't being called, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out why. I thought something was wrong in my code, and it took me weeks to debug this. In the end, after countless tests, I realized that when you place anim notifies too close to the end of an animation montage, they for some reason don't get called when you're playing on a dedicated server. Yes, engine bugs are the worst. In the end, to solve this, I use the montage delegate, which gets called at the end of a montage. But the easy part of game development is, like I said before, you don't have to recreate the wheel. Unreal Engine probably already has a function made for what you want to do. Also, Unreal Engine has something called blueprints, where you don't even need to know C++ to get a game started. You just basically connect one block to another and run your logic. For those of you in the engineering fields, blueprints are very similar to MATLAB Simulink. However, if you're serious about game development, I highly suggest to learn C++ to code your game, because sometimes in blueprints, you're not provided with some functions that you may need. Now, for my awesome game, I've been at it for about a year now. Mind you that this type of game is usually made with a team, but I basically did everything myself. I just had a little help with the level design and the Amazon dedicated servers, where I paid some freelancers $69 to help me with that. Haha. I know that some Grand Theft Auto releases took between 3 and 5 years to make, and those guys had a whole team behind them. But a game does not need to take this amount of time to finalize it. What's great about game development is that it's up to you to define how complex you want it to be. You can literally make a decent game in about a week or two. The first version of Minecraft took one person a mere 6 weeks to create. So hopefully I cleared some things up for you noobs. Damn noobs. Come join me on Discord or Twitter, where you can win free money, up to $100,000 in Bitcoin.
Oh, you cheeky liar!
That's all for now. See you peeps later.